Week 3 was crazy. There were upsets galore and heart pounders across the league. Oh, and the president pissed everybody off, which isn't new, but this time it was NFL players. I touch on that and all NFL games in Week 3 right now on the Play Reaction. Welcome back, everyone. It's my first video in a while because Hurricane Irma took away my internet, but everything's good now and there's a lot to cover from this weekend alone. First, I want to remind you to subscribe so you can know when a new video is posted. Also, you should follow the Play Reaction on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook so you can stay up to date on all my takes on NFL news as it hits. Now let's take a look at what everyone's talking about and everything you need to know to join the conversation. First is the elephant in the Oval Office in the room. President Trump made some pretty disparaging and frankly some rude comments about NFL players who kneel for the national anthem and protest. He said this: "Peaceful protests are a hallmark of our democracy. Even if I don't always agree, I recognize the rights of people to express their views." Oh, wait, sorry, that's what he said in January. Sorry about that. Here's what he said about the NFL. "President should not be telling the Washington Redskins to change their name. Our country has far bigger problems. Focus on them, not nonsense." Still not right. Sorry, my mistake. This is what Trump said about players kneeling for the anthem.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, "Get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!"
This had an interesting effect around the league. Not only did the NFL itself come out in support of players who kneel, most of the owners did as well. It caused such a stir, players around the league decided to protest during the anthem this past Sunday. Some players kneeled, some players sat down, some players locked arms. In some cases, it was the entire team. The Pittsburgh Steelers refused to even leave the locker room until the anthem was over, with the exception of offensive lineman Alejandro Villanueva, who was an Army Ranger and served terms in Afghanistan. It was their way of demonstrating that no person should ever lose their job for voicing what they believe in. This act of peaceful protest, while controversial when Colin Kaepernick decided to do it, has now started to become something that more and more people are suddenly embracing. All it took was the president to say they should be fired for it. It will be interesting to see how many players continue to protest. We'll see. Enough with the politics, though. On with the chlorophyll. Week 3 was the most exciting week yet in the NFL. Chances are, no matter where you live, your coworkers are chatting about one or most of the games around the water cooler. Since this is TLDR NFL news, I'm going to give you the result to every game and tell you what was significant about it in a new segment I call the Rapid Reaction. We'll start with the Thursday Night Football game where the Rams beat the 49ers. This was a shocking result because not only are Thursday games typically low scoring, these are two offenses that are supposed to be low scoring themselves. The 49ers hadn't scored a touchdown until this game. The Rams were one of the worst offenses in the league last year, but on Thursday they had a shootout and a really fun game. Next, we have the first NFL game in London this year, which had the Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Baltimore Ravens. The Jaguars demolished the Baltimore Ravens. This was significant because the Jags were underdogs and no one saw this coming. Last week, they were blown out by the Titans and the Ravens were undefeated. Jacksonville dominated this game in every way. Speaking of upsets, the Bills beat the Broncos. Same situation. The Broncos were undefeated and looking really good. The Bills, well, they're the Bills. They've been a bottom-feeding team for almost 3 decades. The Broncos won a Super Bowl 2 years ago and had a winning record last year. But Sunday, the Bills look great. It's weird to say that. Up next, we have the Saints beating the Panthers. And guess what? It was another upset. Carolina was 2-0 and New Orleans was 0-2. Not only that, but the Saints have had the worst defense in the league so far. And Panthers quarterback Cam Newton struggled big time against them. Good for you, Saints. And what may be the biggest upset of the day, the New York Jets defeated the Miami Dolphins. The Jets are so bad on paper, they're widely known as a team that seems to be tanking on purpose in order to get a high draft pick. And Miami was a playoff team last year. Yeah, I can't explain that one. And that's it for the upsets. Just kidding, the Chicago Bears beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one was a great game that ended in overtime. The Bears were also an 0-2 team defeating a 2-0 team. They looked horrible against the Bucs last week, but beat what some people consider to be a Super Bowl contender. Another thrilling game was the 2-0 Atlanta Falcons taking on the 2-0 Detroit Lions, and it was everything it was expected to be. Two high-powered offenses trading blows with each other. The significant thing in this game was how it ended. Quarterback Matt Stafford threw a pass to Golden Tate, who appeared to cross the goal line with 8 seconds left. It was called a touchdown on the field, and the Lions celebrated as the play was reviewed. The replay showed that Tate's knee was actually down and the ball was inches short of the end zone. Since that meant that the clock should have continued running after the play, by rule, it was an automatic 10-second runoff. Since there were only 8 seconds left, that meant that the Falcons won the game. In yet another thriller, the Philadelphia Eagles defeated the New York Giants. It was a pretty crazy game that ended in a 61-yard field goal, which is a franchise record for Philly. The significance of this game is that New York is now 0-3, and they were expected by some to be a playoff team. The games get crazier as the New England Patriots barely, and I mean barely, beat the Houston Texans. The defending Super Bowl champs almost lost to a rookie quarterback. It took a game-winning drive in the final minute for the Patriots to win. Someday they will run out of whatever magic the football gods have given them. The Colts beat the Browns in a game no one cared about because it was two winless teams. I guess the significant thing is that the Browns were down 28-7 at one point and came just a field goal short of a comeback. Then there's the Vikings-Bucs game. Can we just skip that? Okay, the Vikings dominated the Buccaneers. The interesting thing is that Minnesota had to start their backup quarterback, and he ended up looking like the second coming of Dan Marino. That QB, Case Keenum, is now 3-0 against Tampa. I want to point out, though, that the Bucs had 4 key defensive starters out for this game, and more were taken out through the course of it. What? It's a legitimate excuse. The Tennessee Titans beat the Seattle Seahawks, and the game wasn't even as close as the score leads you to believe. The Seahawks clawed their way back at the end, but it wasn't enough. The Kansas City Chiefs beat the LA Chargers pretty handedly. This was no surprise, unlike most of the other games. The Chargers are struggling in their first year in LA, and the Chiefs look like legit playoff contenders. And on Sunday night, the Washington Redskins completed the day of upsets by completely owning the Oakland Raiders. Kirk Cousins looked like an MVP quarterback, and the Skins' defense baffled Oakland's potent offense. The thing people will be talking about with this game is how cornerback Josh Norman talked trash about Oakland's receivers, adding that Richard Sherman was right.
I was making sure everybody knew that Crabtree was a mediocre receiver. Mediocre.
And since I record these on Monday night, here's the part of the show where I lazily add the result of the Monday Night Football game in post. So, what stood out to you about Week 3? What was the most surprising game to you? Again, remember to subscribe so you can stay updated, follow us on social media, and thanks for watching.